The massive Imperial ship hung in Earth's orbit like a dark cloud, its metallic surface reflecting the sun's rays. Inside the United Nations Space Command Center in Geneva, Admiral James Stone stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the main screen with steady eyes. "They're requesting permission to send their delegation, sir," reported Lieutenant West from her communication station. Her voice was calm, but her fingers tapped nervously on the console. Admiral Stone nodded slowly. "Grant them permission, but activate Protocol 7 quietly." Around the world, hidden defense systems hummed to life, remaining invisible to the Imperial scanners. Humanity had spent the last 100 years preparing for this moment, ever since they first detected alien transmissions. The Imperial delegation arrived in a small shuttle, landing at the designated meeting point in the middle of the Geneva International Spaceport. 3 tall aliens stepped out, their purple-tinted skin and formal military uniforms making them look exactly like the intelligence reports had predicted. The lead alien, wearing what appeared to be an admiral's insignia, spoke first. Their translation device converted their words into perfect English. "I am Fleet Commander Dex of the Galactic Empire. We have come to offer Earth a place within our empire. 300 star systems already prosper under our rule." Admiral Stone stepped forward, his weathered face showing no emotion. "Fleet Commander, on behalf of Earth, I have a message for your empire." He paused, making sure he had their full attention. "Run." The alien delegation looked at each other, confusion clear on their faces. Fleet Commander Dex laughed, the sound strange and metallic through the translator. "Perhaps there is a translation error. We are offering you membership in the largest civilization in known space." "There is no error," Stone replied calmly. "We've studied your transmissions for decades. We know about your empire, your technology, and your methods. This is not a joke or a boast. It is a warning, given out of mercy." He stepped closer to the alien commander. "Leave Earth alone, or face the consequences." The alien's expressions shifted from confusion to amusement. The second alien, wearing what looked like a scientist's badge, spoke up. "Your species hasn't even colonized your own solar system. Our scans show primitive nuclear fusion drives and basic particle weapons." Stone smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What your scans show is exactly what we want them to show." A tense silence filled the room. Fleet Commander Dex's amusement faded slightly. "Are you threatening the Galactic Empire? We command fleets that could darken your skies. Our smallest battle group could reduce your cities to ash." "You could try," Stone answered. "But I promise you, it would be the biggest mistake your empire has ever made. We are giving you one warning, one chance to avoid what's coming. We don't want war, Commander. But if you force one upon us, you will learn why humans have spent centuries preparing for this moment." The third alien, wearing intelligence insignia, stepped forward. "Our analysis shows your species is barely at level 3 technological development. You cannot hope to resist." Stone turned to leave but stopped at the door. "Your analysis shows what we let you see. Remember this moment, Commander Dex. Remember that we warned you fairly." He looked back at them, his eyes hard. "Because if you choose war, there won't be a second warning." As the alien delegation returned to their shuttle, clearly dismissing the warning as primitive bravado, Admiral Stone walked to the command center's main communication panel. He pressed his hand against the scanner and spoke clearly. "Initiate Dawn Protocol." Across Earth, hidden military bases began powering up. In underground bunkers, soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment took their positions. Orbital platforms, invisible to Imperial scans, prepared their weapons. Lieutenant West looked up from her station. "Sir, the Imperial shuttle has departed. Their main ship is preparing to leave orbit. They'll be back," Stone said quietly. "And they'll bring their fleet. Are we ready, sir?" Stone watched the Imperial ship disappear into hyperspace. A small smile crossed his face as he remembered how humanity had spent generations preparing for this moment, developing technologies in secret, building weapons that looked primitive but held devastating surprises. "Lieutenant," he said, "we've been ready for centuries. They just don't know it yet." 3 weeks after the warning, Imperial ships filled Earth's skies. 200 warships, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight, moved into attack formation. On Earth's surface, Admiral Stone watched the tactical display with calm eyes. "Enemy fleet is launching fighters," Lieutenant West announced. "They're targeting our major cities and military bases." Her voice remained steady, though her hands gripped her console tightly. Stone nodded. "Right on schedule. Let them get closer." He turned to General Reed at the tactical station. "Status of our defense platforms." "All systems hidden and ready, sir. The Empire still thinks they're just communication satellites." The Imperial fleet moved closer, their confidence clear in their aggressive formation. Their communication channels broadcast their message across all frequencies. "People of Earth, you have refused our generous offer. Surrender now or face immediate destruction." Stone pressed a button on his command chair. "Execute Operation Lightning." Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of seemingly innocent satellites suddenly transformed. Hidden panels slid open, revealing weapons that Earth's scientists had perfected over decades of secret development. The Empire's scanners had dismissed them as primitive communication devices. Quantum-linked defense platforms activated, General Reed reported with a grim smile. "Targeting systems engage." The first wave of Imperial fighters didn't even have time to react. Beams of energy, operating on principles the Empire had never encountered, cut through their advanced shields like they weren't there. 30 fighters disappeared in the first 10 seconds. "Impossible." The Imperial commander's voice boomed over the communication channels. "Their weapons, they're bypassing our shields." Stone's voice was calm as he gave his next order. "Launch our fighters. Show them what humanity has been hiding." From hidden bases across Earth, aircraft that had appeared primitive to Imperial scans took flight. But these weren't the simple jets the Empire had detected. As they reached altitude, their true forms were revealed. Advanced aerospace fighters with technology that matched or exceeded Imperial standards. "Sir, the enemy is regrouping," Lieutenant West reported. "They're launching their main attack force." "Perfect." Stone turned to his tactical officer. "Deploy the Thunderbird squadrons. Execute attack pattern Delta." Earth's fighters engaged the Imperial forces using tactics that confused and frustrated the enemy. Instead of meeting them in traditional space combat, Earth's forces used guerrilla warfare techniques adapted for space warfare. They struck from unexpected angles, used Earth's gravity well as both weapon and shield, and employed electronic warfare systems that turned Imperial technology against itself. "Enemy fleet reporting massive casualties," General Reed announced with satisfaction. "Their formations are breaking apart." On the main screen, Imperial ships tried to adapt to Earth's unconventional tactics, but their rigid training worked against them. Their attempts to form defensive formations were predicted and countered before they could complete them. "Their flagship is signaling, sir," Lieutenant West reported. "They're requesting communication." Stone straightened his uniform. "Put them through." The Imperial fleet commander's face appeared on screen, his purple skin now pale with shock. "How is this possible? Your technology, your tactics, none of this was in our scans." "We tried to warn you," Stone replied calmly. "Humanity has spent centuries preparing for first contact. Did you think we wouldn't notice your empire's expansion? That we wouldn't prepare? But your weapons, they're impossible. They violate known physics." Stone allowed himself a small smile. "Known to you, perhaps. While your empire focused on expanding, humanity focused on understanding. We developed technologies you never considered because you were too convinced of your own superiority." The Imperial commander's expression hardened. "This isn't over. The Empire will." "Look at your tactical display," Stone interrupted. "You've lost 60% of your fleet in less than an hour. You can retreat now, or we can continue this demonstration." After a moment of tense silence, the Imperial ships began to withdraw. As they fled, Stone turned to his bridge crew. Send word to all commands. Phase 2 begins now. The Empire needs to understand that humanity wasn't making empty threats. Lieutenant West looked up from her station. Do you think they'll be back, sir? Oh, they'll be back, Stone replied, watching the retreating ships. But next time, we won't be defending. It's time to show them why Earth's warning should have been taken seriously. In the Imperial capital's High Command Center, chaos reigned. Military leaders from across the Empire gathered around a massive holographic display, their faces showing a mix of disbelief and fear as they watched recordings of the Earth battle. This is unprecedented, growled High Commander Vale, his purple skin dark with anger. How did a single planet destroy nearly half our subjugation fleet? The Empire's chief science officer, Dr. Rand, replayed the battle footage again. Their technology makes no sense. Look here. He pointed to a scene where Earth's weapons bypassed Imperial shields. It's as if they knew exactly how our defenses worked and designed weapons specifically to counter them. That's exactly what they did, a quiet voice said from the back of the room. Intelligence Director Miller stepped forward, his face grim. We've discovered something disturbing. Humans have been intercepting and studying our transmissions for over 200 years. The room fell silent. High Commander Vale's eyes narrowed. Impossible. Their technology is too primitive for that. Is it? Miller projected a new image, a detailed analysis of Earth's recent attacks. What we thought were primitive satellites were actually advanced weapon platforms. What we dismissed as basic spacecraft were cutting-edge fighters. Everything we scanned was exactly what they wanted us to see. On the other side of the galaxy, Earth's forces were already in motion. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of humanity's first revealed warship, the EDF Reckoning, as it moved through hyperspace. Unlike the clunky vessels the Empire had detected, this ship represented humanity's true technological level. Status report, Stone commanded. Commander Wells, his tactical officer, looked up from his station. Imperial border outposts are still in disarray, sir. They haven't adapted their defense protocols yet. Of course they haven't, Stone replied. Their military doctrine hasn't changed in 3 centuries. They never needed to adapt, until now. Back in the Imperial capital, the debate continued. They're attacking our border outposts, a regional commander reported, his voice shaking. But their tactics, they're like nothing we've ever seen. Intelligence Director Miller nodded. Humans call it asymmetric warfare. They don't fight like a traditional military force. Each attack is different, unpredictable. They strike weaknesses we didn't even know we had. How do we fight an enemy like this? Someone asked. That's the problem, Miller replied. Every time we adapt to one of their tactics, they switch to something new. They're learning, evolving their strategies in real time. Our standardized response protocols are worse than useless. They're predictable. High Commander Vale slammed his fist on the table. They're savages, primitives. How are they doing this? Because we underestimated them, Dr. Rand said quietly. Their warning wasn't a bluff or bravado. It was a courtesy, one we ignored. On the EDF Reckoning, Stone received new battle reports. Earth's forces had struck 12 Imperial outposts in the last hour, each attack using different tactics. Imperial commanders were frantically trying to predict where they would strike next, but humans had spent centuries studying how the Empire thought and fought. Sir, Lieutenant West called from her communication station. We're intercepting Imperial transmissions. Their command structure is starting to fracture. Some of their worlds are calling for negotiations. Stone nodded. They're beginning to understand. But understanding isn't enough. Send word to all Earth forces. Commence Phase 3. The psychological warfare package, sir. Exactly. Stone allowed himself a small smile. Let's show them why humans are particularly good at fighting wars we don't want. In the Imperial capital, the holographic display suddenly changed. Every screen, every communication device, began showing the same message. a simple countdown timer. "What is this?" Vale demanded. Miller's face went pale. "They're in our systems, completely in our systems. Everything we built, everything we rely on." He looked up at the other leaders. "They're not just fighting our ships. They're fighting our entire civilization." The countdown continued its silent descent toward zero, and for the first time in its history, the Galactic Empire felt something new. Fear. Stone watched the stars streak by in hyperspace. "Send the final message to command. Tell them it's time to show the Empire why Earth's warning wasn't a threat. It was a kindness they chose to ignore." Operation Thunderbolt began at exactly midnight Earth time. Commander Tom Wells stood on the bridge of his stealth ship, the EDF Shadow, as it slipped through Imperial space completely undetected. His ship led a fleet of 50 vessels, each one invisible to Imperial sensors. "Status of the AI warfare systems," Wells asked his technical officer. "All green, sir. The Empire still hasn't realized we're inside their defense grid." The officer smiled. "They're looking for our ships in all the wrong places." Wells nodded, remembering Admiral Stone's words. "The Empire's greatest weakness is their belief in their own superiority. Now, deep in enemy territory, that weakness would cost them dearly." "Begin broadcast," Wells ordered. Across Imperial space, their carefully crafted message began playing on every communication channel. It wasn't a threat or a demand. It was simply the sound of a ticking clock, counting down to something unknown. In the Imperial capital, High Commander Vale was losing control of his empire. "How are they doing this?" he shouted, watching as another defense system went dark. "Where are they?" A junior officer rushed into the command center. "Sir, we're detecting anomalies in the Centauri sector." "Launch the fleet," Vale ordered. "That's just what they want us to do," Intelligence Director Miller warned. "Every time we react, we fall into their traps." But Vale wouldn't listen. The Imperial fleet moved to intercept the supposed threat, exactly as Earth's forces had predicted. As the massive ships gathered in the Centauri sector, Wells gave his next order. "Activate the AI combat systems." Earth's greatest secret weapon wasn't their advanced ships or powerful weapons, it was their artificial intelligence. While the Empire relied on rigid protocols and standardized responses, human AI systems could think, adapt, and evolve their strategies in real time. The Imperial fleet found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see or predict. Earth's ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking from impossible angles. Their AI systems calculated and executed combat maneuvers faster than any organic pilot could react. "Sir," Wells's tactical officer reported, "Imperial ships are firing on each other. Their communication confusion is complete." Wells watched as the mighty Imperial fleet fell into chaos. Earth's AI systems had infiltrated their networks, sending false orders and creating phantom targets. Ships fired at enemies that didn't exist, while real threats struck from the shadows. Back on Earth, Admiral Stone received the battle reports with satisfaction. "Send word to Commander Wells," he ordered. "Begin Phase 2 of Operation Thunderbolt." In Imperial space, Wells's fleet split into smaller groups, each targeting different strategic locations. They weren't just fighting ships anymore. They were dismantling the Empire's entire military infrastructure. "Sir," his communication officer called out, "we're receiving surrender signals from 3 Imperial worlds." Wells hadn't expected surrenders this quickly. "They're learning," he murmured. "Confirm receipt of surrender and mark those worlds as protected." In the Imperial capital, Vale watched helplessly as his command structure crumbled. "How can primitives do this to us?" he demanded. Miller, who had been studying human history, finally understood. "Because we misunderstood what they are," he explained. "Humans don't just fight wars, they revolutionize warfare itself. Every conflict in their history has led to dramatic changes in how they fight." "Launch everything we have," Vale ordered desperately. "Every ship, every weapon." "That's not going to work," Miller warned. "Look at their pattern. They're not trying to destroy us. They're systematically dismantling our ability to fight back. On the EDF Shadow, Wells received new orders from Earth Command. Phase 3 authorize, he read aloud. Show them our final surprise. His crew knew what that meant. Earth's ships activated their most advanced systems yet, technology that made their previous demonstrations look primitive by comparison. Send the message to all Imperial forces, Wells commanded. Tell them exactly what Admiral Stone told their delegation. We warned you to run. As Earth's forces revealed their true capabilities, the Empire finally understood the terrible mistake they had made. They hadn't just started a war. They had awakened a sleeping giant that had spent centuries preparing for this very moment. And they were about to learn why that warning should have been heeded. Imperial High Command's meeting chamber had changed dramatically in the past week. Where once proud military leaders had sat discussing conquest, now tired officers huddled around damaged displays, their faces showing exhaustion and fear. Another sector has gone dark. An officer reported, his voice trembling. We've lost contact with 30 more worlds. High Commander Vale, his uniform no longer pristine, stared at the strategic display. Huge sections of the map were black. Territories where Imperial control had simply vanished, not through destruction, but through something far more frightening. Complete system failure. How are humans doing this? Vale demanded. They're attacking everywhere at once. Intelligence Director Miller stepped forward, looking even more tired than the others. That's what we thought at first. But we were wrong. He pressed a button, showing a new analysis. They're not attacking everywhere. They're attacking exactly where we're weakest, exactly when we're most vulnerable. Meanwhile, aboard the EDF Reckoning, Admiral Stone coordinated humanity's masterstroke. Status of Operation Mind Games, he asked. General Reed grinned at his console. Working perfectly, sir. The Empire's trying to defend against ghosts while we walk through their front door. Stone nodded. Earth's forces had studied human military history well. They weren't just fighting with ships and weapons. They were using every trick, every strategy, every psychological tactic that humanity had developed over centuries of warfare. Launch the next phase, Stone ordered. Across Imperial space, the psychological warfare campaign intensified. Earth's AI systems didn't just attack Imperial technology, they played with it. Defense systems would suddenly speak in human voices. Navigation computers would sing Earth songs. Communication networks would play scenes from human war movies. They're trying to drive us mad. An Imperial officer screamed, throwing his communicator across the room as it started playing. It's a small world for the 100th time. But the psychological warfare was just a distraction. While Imperial forces frantically tried to maintain their sanity, Earth's real attacks struck with surgical precision. Commander Wells led these precision strikes from the EDF Shadow. Target their command and control centers, he ordered. But remember, minimal casualties. We want them scared, not martyred. His crew had perfected this approach. Their attacks would shut down Imperial facilities without harming the people inside. Weapons would stop working. Ships would lose power. Communication would fail. But the people would survive, left to spread stories about the humans' terrifying capabilities. Back in the Imperial capital, Miller presented his latest analysis to the High Command. Look at their pattern, he explained. Every attack has been perfectly calculated. They could have destroyed us, but they chose not to. Why? Vale demanded. Why show mercy? Because this isn't about destruction, Miller realized. This is about teaching us a lesson. On Earth, the United Nations Space Command received more surrender signals every hour. Admiral Stone watched the reports with satisfaction. How many worlds have requested negotiations? He asked Lieutenant West. 73 as of this morning, sir, she replied. And more are coming in. Stone nodded. The plan was working perfectly. Earth's forces had demonstrated their overwhelming superiority without resorting to mass destruction. They had proven they could shut down the entire empire without firing a shot. "Sir," West called out suddenly, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Imperial capital." The message was short but historic. The Imperial High Command requested an immediate ceasefire and opened diplomatic channels. Stone allowed himself a small smile. "Send our response. One word only. Finally." In the Imperial capital, Vale read Earth's response and finally understood. Humans hadn't wanted this war. They had warned the Empire fairly, but when forced to fight, they had shown mastery of warfare beyond anything the Empire had imagined. "Send word to all Imperial forces," Vale ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "The war is over. Earth has won." But aboard the EDF Reckoning, Admiral Stone knew better. "This isn't about winning or losing," he told his crew. "This is about understanding. And the Empire is finally beginning to understand why we warned them to run." The Imperial Palace's main hall, once a symbol of absolute power, now served a different purpose. High Commander Vale stood before the assembled Imperial Council, his voice echoing through the silent chamber as he read the latest reports. "In 3 months of conflict," he said, his voice heavy, "humanity has achieved what no species has done in 1,000 years. They have brought the Empire to its knees, without destroying a single inhabited world." The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. On the massive screens behind Vale, data scrolled showing the extent of Earth's victory. 90% of Imperial military systems disabled, 300 worlds cut off from central control, and the Empire's once mighty fleet reduced to floating hulks. "But how?" one council member demanded. Their technology seemed so primitive. Intelligence Director Miller stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "That's what they wanted us to think. Look at this analysis. Earth has technological capabilities far beyond what they showed us initially." The display showed footage from recent battles. Earth ships appearing from nowhere, weapons that ignored Imperial shields, and AI systems that adapted faster than any organic mind could comprehend. "But here's the truly frightening part," Miller continued. "We now believe they're still holding back their most advanced technology." In Earth orbit, Admiral Stone stood aboard the EDF Reckoning, watching as Imperial diplomats approached in their shuttle. Commander Wells stood beside him, reading the latest intelligence reports. "The Empire's finally starting to understand, sir," Wells said. "Our intercepted communications show they're actually scared of what else we might have hidden." Stone nodded. "Fear wasn't our goal, Commander. Understanding was." "Sir," Lieutenant West interrupted, "Imperial shuttle is requesting docking permission. They've sent their delegation list." She paused, surprise evident in her voice. "High Commander Vale is leading it personally." Stone allowed himself a small smile. "Now that's progress. Grant them permission." The meeting took place in the Reckoning's conference room. Vale and his delegation sat across from Stone and his officers, the tension thick in the air. "Before we begin formal negotiations," Vale said, his voice carefully controlled, "there's something we need to know. How long could you have done this? How long have you had these capabilities?" Stone leaned forward. "Remember that warning we gave you? We've had centuries to prepare. Every time your ships passed near our solar system, we learned. Every transmission you sent, we studied. We built our entire defense strategy around your weaknesses." "But why hide it?" another Imperial officer asked. "Why pretend to be primitive?" "Because," Stone replied, "humanity learned long ago that the most effective weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know exists. We didn't want war, Commander Vale. We wanted to be left in peace. That's why we warned you." Vale's face showed a mix of emotions. Anger, respect, fear. "The weapons you used against us, they seemed impossible." "No," Stone corrected him. "They seemed impossible to you. Humanity has always excelled at thinking differently. While your empire expanded through brute force, we focused on innovation. Every weapon we used was designed specifically to counter your technology. And the psychological warfare? Miller asked. The singing computers, the phantom attacks. Stone actually smiled. Humans have a saying, the mind is the most powerful weapon. We didn't just want to defeat your ships. We wanted to show you why starting a war with Earth was a fundamental mistake. Vale straightened in his chair. The Empire. We've never faced anything like this. Your species fights like no other we've encountered. That's because you've never encountered humans before, Stone replied. We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves, learning, adapting, evolving our tactics. When we finally looked to the stars, we promised ourselves we would be ready. Ready for what? Vale asked quietly. Ready to protect ourselves, Stone answered. Ready to ensure that humanity would never be subjugated. Ready to show any aggressor why Earth should be left in peace. Vale nodded slowly, finally understanding the full meaning of that first warning. The Empire hadn't just started a war. They had awakened a sleeping giant that had spent centuries preparing for exactly this moment. And now, they were about to learn the true price of ignoring humanity's warning. 1 month after the peace negotiations began, representatives from Earth and the Empire gathered in the newly constructed Galactic Peace Center in Geneva. The massive building, designed to showcase both human and imperial architecture, symbolized the new era that was about to begin. Admiral Stone stood at the main podium, facing an audience that included beings from over 300 worlds. High Commander Vale sat in the front row, his expression thoughtful as he watched the human who had changed the Empire forever. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, Stone began, not because of victory or defeat, but because of understanding. The room fell silent as holographic displays activated, showing the brief but dramatic war that had reshaped the galaxy's power structure. Earth ships dancing through Imperial defenses, weapons that seemed to defy physics, and AI systems that had outwitted the Empire's best strategists. We never wanted war, Stone continued. Humanity's warning wasn't a threat. It was an attempt to avoid unnecessary conflict. Today, we reveal why. At his signal, Lieutenant West activated another display. This one showed Earth's true military capabilities, technologies and weapons that had never been used during the conflict. The Imperial representatives gasped as they realized that humanity had won using only a fraction of their actual strength. By the stars, Vale whispered, "You could have destroyed us completely." "But we didn't," Stone replied, "because destruction was never our goal. We fought this war the way we did for one simple reason: to show the galaxy that peace is always the better choice." Commander Wells stepped forward, presenting the final peace treaty. The terms were surprisingly generous. Earth would share some of its technological advances, help modernize Imperial worlds, and establish free trade routes. In return, the Empire would recognize Earth's independence and right to self-governance. But why? An Imperial Council member asked. Why offer cooperation after what we tried to do? Stone smiled. Because that's what humans do. We fight fiercely when we must, but we prefer to build rather than destroy, to create rather than conquer. As the treaty was signed, General Reed approached Stone with the final battle statistics. "Sir, final confirmation. Not a single civilian casualty on either side. A first in galactic warfare history." This revelation sent murmurs through the assembled aliens. The Empire had always considered civilian casualties an unfortunate but necessary part of war. Yet humans had achieved total victory without taking a single innocent life. "There's something else you should know." Stone addressed the gathering. "Everything we showed you during the war, every weapon, every strategy, every technological advancement, they were all designed with one purpose: to end conflict with minimal loss of life." Intelligence Director Miller, who had spent months studying human history, stood up. "You created weapons specifically designed not to kill." "Precisely," Stone confirmed, "because humanity learned long ago that the true measure of power isn't in how much you can destroy, but in how much you can achieve without destruction. The ceremony concluded with an unprecedented announcement. The Galactic Empire would be reformed into the Galactic Alliance, with Earth taking a leading role in its peaceful transformation. Admiral Stone would serve as humanity's first representative on the new Alliance Council. As the delegates began to leave, Vale approached Stone privately. "You know," he said, "when you first warned us to run, we thought you were primitives making empty threats." Stone nodded. "And now? Now I understand that it wasn't a threat at all. It was mercy." Vale extended his hand in the human gesture he had learned. "Thank you for showing us a better way." Later that evening, Stone stood in his office overlooking the Geneva skyline. Lieutenant West entered with the final report. "Sir, all Earth defense systems are standing down. The war is officially over." Stone smiled, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "No, Lieutenant. It's not just over. Something new is beginning." "What's that, sir?" "An era where the galaxy understands why Earth warned them to run," he replied. "Not because we were afraid to fight, but because we were wise enough to know that peace is always the greater victory." And as night fell on Earth, humanity looked to the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as teachers ready to show the galaxy a better way forward.